Research more about the subject to have stronger arguments. In the previous video, I said it would be difficult for Boruto to awaken such power. In this video, I'm doubling down on the bet, stating that it would be a plot hole if Boruto didn't have a giant humanoid. But please, don't just listen to the beginning and go around spouting nonsense without understanding the context, basing your opinions only on the title and the thumbnail. Watch until the end to understand all the details. By then, you'll probably agree with me that Boruto will have a humanoid as powerful as a Bijou, maybe even stronger. And look, since the beginning of Boruto to Blue Vortex, Boruto has been showing one power upgrade after another. Horaishin here, a new Susanoo there, sword fights everywhere, and so on. He's on another level now. As if it weren't already enough to be practically an Otsutsuki in terms of power, Boruto has become a complete ninja with his new techniques and abilities. The most interesting thing is that practically the entire fandom considers Boruto the strongest in the work, currently, because he hasn't shown everything yet, only some less dominant powers that we already know. Sure, they are great and unbalanced powers, but they haven't shown colossal power or anything like that. And this aligns with the supposed Susanoo of Boruto. Think with me, in all the legendary fights, the level of power scales in size. Hagoromo and Harama against Kaguya, Susanoo against Jubi, Hashirama against Madara, a statue the size of the world with arms on all sides versus Susanoo and Kurama. Naruto against Sasuke, Kurama mode versus Susanoo. After this, we cannot expect Boruto not to have a way to confront these colossi. Or do you think Boruto would face a Susanoo, a humanoid, or a Jubi the size of Mount Everest, using just a kunai, sword, and Horaishin? Of course not. He would need something equivalent. Well, the Susanoo is basically an armor that protects the user, starting with smaller phases, with ribs and a ribcage for protection, up to the final level, several meters tall, called the Perfect Susanoo. Some Perfect Susanoo have special abilities, like Itachi's, with 2 shurikens that activate Kamui, or the Yata armor, which repels everything, and the Totsuka blade, which seals everything it touches. But for the Susanoo to be activated, certain requirements are needed, which we will see if Boruto could meet. First, only Sharingan users have been able to activate it, but in the second version with the Mangekyo Sharingan, upon awakening this new form, the Uchihas gain access to the Susanoo. This leads us to the first debacle. How would Boruto awaken this power if he does not have Sharingan? This is where the Jogan comes in. From the first chapters and episodes of Boruto, we've seen the Jogan being activated, but we know little about it. What little we do know is enough to see that it is a powerful dojutsu. Not only that, but also in celebration of the first volume of Boruto, Kishimoto created a drawing showing the future powers of the characters Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki, in which the powers of Mitsuki and Sarada materialized exactly as they were in the drawing. But how does Boruto fit in with the Susanoo in this story? Look, if you observe the drawing carefully, Boruto appears with a chakra cloak very similar to Kurama mode. This initially doesn't make sense, since Kurama died, right? However, looking more closely, Boruto has 2 eyes that look like the Byakugan. We can assume that they might actually be 2 Jogans, as they resemble them a lot. Therefore, by putting together the information, we can conclude that Kishimoto intends to give Boruto a chakra cloak, and this cloak could come from the Jogan. Just as the Tenseigan had a chakra cloak, the Jogan could also have one, especially since the dojutsus are very similar. And I say more, this humanoid we are thinking of could arise from this transformation. The chakra cloak of Kurama had versions where the transformation presented just the chakra cloak, and also the enhanced version with Kurama mode. In other words, a level 2 of Jogan mode could be a humanoid, which would be very similar to the Susanoo. We can say that since Boruto trained with Sasuke, he is greatly inspired by him. Thus, Boruto could take inspiration from Sasuke's Susanoo for a new transformation. This is revealed when we see a flashback of Boruto's training with Sasuke, where Boruto asks if the Uchiha style is good enough. Could this style limitation extend to the Susanoo? Another idea would be a chakra cloak based on Momoshiki's powers, or some humanoid derived from those powers. Just as Naruto had access to Kurama's chakra, Boruto would have access to Momoshiki's chakra. I must confess that I don't see much perspective in this, as it would be too repetitive, although it is extremely possible. However, some questions arise. The first is, if it were a Susanoo, would it be effective? Well, I can tell you now that it wouldn't be, because as we saw, Ishiki knocked Sasuke out of the Susanoo with a mere kick, and one of Boruto's enemies possesses Ishiki's power. Not to mention, the more powerful villains Boruto will fight against. Therefore, a Susanoo would not be effective at the current level, unless it possessed unique powers that could assist. Now, this line of thinking about chakra mode might be more effective because it would be reformulated in another way, with unique powers. And to be honest, I really like this idea of chakra mode, and truly believe it is possible, as transformations are something that sells. And anime and protagonists have transformations, So you could note that Boruto will have his. And as we saw in Naruto, this transformation could follow the line of a chakra cloak, since it is widely discussed in Boruto and the visual is as beautiful as possible. But there is another form of humanoid with powers that Boruto already has and has not used. Ignoring them would practically be a plot hole. When Momoshiki appeared, he demonstrated legendary powers like Rinnegan, chakra absorption, and others. Just as Kawaki has access to all of Ishiki's powers based on karma, Boruto, who is 100% Otsutsuki, must have access to all of Momoshiki's powers. Even though we haven't seen him using these powers in the new phase, it is what will happen sooner or later. And one of Momoshiki's powers is to shape and create creatures, such as a gigantic golem that faced Kurama mode, coated with Susanoo. Do you realize how absurd that is? Moreover, Boruto has the full capacity to create these beings based on Momoshiki's powers. Additionally, he can give new uses or forms to these powers. For example, creating mini golems, mini clones of himself, or gigantic golems, whether based on his appearance or not. As we know, whenever someone uses the same power as another, they give it a different use, and Boruto could do this. This means that Boruto already has the power to confront gigantic structures, and not using this power would end up being somewhat of a plot hole or a power left aside. This proves that in some way, Boruto will awaken a gigantic and epic humanoid, whether through the Jogan, chakra mode, the chakra of Momoshiki, or Momoshiki's powers in the form of a golem. What we cannot claim is that this will not happen. Look at the possibilities, all without inventing power, taking things that Boruto already has in his arsenal. You may not like the idea, not like humanoids, Susanoo. You may kick and scream and do whatever you want, but to say it's impossible is already a denial. So tell me, among these possibilities, which do you think is the most viable? And remember, nothing I say here is fortune telling. I might be wrong, but the facts are the facts. Now we just have to wait and see the direction the work will take. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with more content from this channel. I will do more analysis of the viability of these theories, so subscribe to not miss anything. And I'll see you in the next video.